Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Becoming a Powerhouse Brand. Today I am welcomed by the lovely Oli Cooke, who is going to come on and talk to us all about scaling your business. I know those of you that are listening to this, you are very driven, you have big delusional goals, you are very driven by the success and living that dream life. And one of the things I talk about a lot is energetics, your mindset, being really empowered and actually setting yourself up for success. So Oli is a mindset and performance coach for very driven entrepreneurs just like you who want the success without the side effects, and not to actually move forward and force your way, but actually to open up the possibilities that are already available to you. So Oli, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to dive into this episode
Me
because this
too.
has been something, I know we had a bit of a chat before I hit record, but this has been something that's been really important to me, on huge for my own personal growth in the last year, is really working on those limiting beliefs, really working on my nervous system, the subconscious blocks that were there like for so long and I just didn't even realize. So Ollie, before we dive into the conversation, could you just give us a bit of a background into who you are, what you do, and how you help people right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you put it really well there. I work with high performing sort of high achievers. I usually refer to the people I work with as driven because I think that kind of most people can kind of identify with that or not. And I essentially clear the fears and the subconscious blocks that are in the way to getting to that next level of growth, whatever that might be for the individual. And the way that I do that is with a blend of sort of high performance and high fulfillment. I think it's when I talk about success without side effects, I'm I'm basically talking in response to success at all costs. It's basically like what is your brand of success, what is your version of success, and being clear on that. But then also deeper than that, kind of causing a change with those side effects that are often just taken as part of it, like the overworking or the overwhelm or the perfectionism, the fear of judgment, that the stuff that really can not only get in the way of getting to that next level, but also really ruin the experience of where you are right now.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, so important. And I think when you talk about having that vision of success as well, I think one thing I've noticed a lot in the entrepreneurial world is it's very easy to see the incredible results that somebody else might be achieving and think, oh, okay, that must be success, and almost have a label on what success is. But actually, that could be so different for everybody. It could be you want to have complete freedom in that you want to live remotely, you don't want any in-person stuff with your work, you want to be able to travel the world and just be so free to be able to live that kind of life. Or it could be you want to hit a certain income level, or it could be you want to have the material things in your life. Like it's really about tapping into what your version of success actually looks like and how that feels to you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there can be a whole load of relief that comes from actually almost like dropping a certain idea and being like, oh, that's not actually what I want. And when somebody's kind of you see it in someone like, oh yeah, actually, no, yeah, I'd much rather this or so I think yeah, sort of having that real understanding of what is success for you. And personally, and this is just how I think about it, is I because I think the fulfillment now as well as the very big goals that I think you can be absolutely incredibly ambitious, have these huge goals, but be sort of looking for how are you already being successful, as if it's like an ongoing kind of like intentional process. So even if you look at it from today's perspective, how are you being successful today? What is it that's indicating to you that you are already being successful? And that's, I think, part of how you can build this life that and business that you're really sort of growing into, but also very much like appreciating and experiencing
Yeah,
now. Um, and in a way that's kind of beyond just being there now. It's
yeah,
actually, what are those kind of energy drains? What are the kind of mental kind of thought loops and patterns of thinking and feeling that are getting in the way of experiencing what it is that you're building right now.
Yeah. How did you get started into this work? I'd love to know like what your story's been.
Yeah, so I'm from the UK, as you can probably hear, but I lived in Vietnam for kind of half my 20s, and that was really like an interesting time. And I started out through actually teaching, through focused on pronunciation. That was what I found really fascinating as I was learning kind of Vietnamese and um, becoming sort of skilled in helping people with their communication. I then, after working with people who were very advanced speakers of English, um, realizing, hang on, they are, but they don't know they are. And so then that got me really fascinated with like the beliefs that were underlying. It's like I remember asking a client at the time, yeah, how would you know that you were fluent? And I just saw this kind of like light bulb moment where it's like, oh, I guess I've never thought about it. Maybe I am. And that kind of like got me really interested in it's like, oh, if you shift how someone sees something, that can have a significant impact on how they're experiencing life. And with my own personal journey as kind of a uh, lifelong time experience with anxiety and panic attacks and sort of always myself looking for like what's the most effective way to be sort of experiencing things differently to get the kind of the mind to stop doing what it's been doing and be more supportive. I tried so many different things that kind of didn't quite do it. Um, and so yeah, it's been a sort of knock-on effect from there of like blending the two, and eventually it came to like, okay, this is now bringing these kind of root level shifts to the entrepreneurs in front of me, or not always entrepreneurs, but just the humans.
I love that. And also, where you've traveled a lot and lived in all these different places for quite a long period of time, I guess you must have learned a lot about different cultures and how we, because I think we are all so different, aren't we, in our different cultures, our upbringings, and what we're surrounded by, in terms of our own beliefs and how we're, because we carry generational beliefs as well, don't we? It's not just our own beliefs we've experienced in our lifetime, it's also passed down from like generations of what their beliefs were and their experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it can be really eye-opening when you're talking to somebody who's a family member and they say something and it's like, oh, that's where I learned that. And yeah, it's definitely very eye-opening. Um, I think one of the things that was kind of surprising just about being around different cultures, and everyone who's experienced this will probably get it, is that you can you if somebody does something a different way to you, has always done it a different way to you, and absolutely believes that that's the truth and that's the way to do it, then how can they both be sort of true? So it opens your mind to well, maybe this is just a way of seeing things. It's a kind of practiced and agreed upon way of understanding something, so it can be changed.
Yeah.
And so with my work, I'm not necessarily looking for what's truest, but rather what is most useful as a way of understanding things. And because I think true is so many people disagree about what that is who are much more intelligent than me. And for me, it's like, well, what's the most useful way of understanding this? And what's the thing that causes the experience of it to change as well? Rather than just simply knowing more so that's why I think it's deeper than just like mindset. It's kind of also nervous system. It's like, how is this changing how you actually experience life? Otherwise, I'm not interested.
Yeah. How would you explain what your, I talk about nervous system a fair amount, but I've never necessarily talked about exactly what it is. Like, how would you sort of say what your nervous system is? How could that actually be holding you back? Like, what do you need to do with your nervous system to be able to open up doors that maybe have just been shut because of your own beliefs and how you're regulating that nervous system? Like, how would you explain it to someone that's listening to this?
Yeah, it's an
I've put
interesting
you on the spot
question.
now, haven't I?
Yeah, and we'll see how I do. I don't know, but the interesting thing I think is I'll probably use my own experience because I think if I think about because I think they are wrapped up together. You're sort of like the beliefs you have kind of feed how your nervous system is responding, and I think it can all happen so quickly outside of conscious awareness that we can kind of experience it and notice, oh, I'm having these thoughts, or I'm having these sensations, but not be able to necessarily do anything about it because we haven't got access to the dials. And so I think, I think of this kind of guy shaking a Bluetooth speaker and thinking, oh, saying I just hate this song so much. And you might say to him, well, I think you can have more luck if you find where it's playing from and change it there rather than the speaker. So I think the what I think of is essentially the unconscious kind of programming informs then how we're experiencing, how we're thinking and feeling and ultimately behaving. And so the nervous system would be definitely like linked to what are the underlying kind of beliefs that are feeding those kind of responses and the patterns and conditioning and programming. Essentially, I think if it's programming is a kind of useful way of understanding it. But for me, if I think about like when it came to lots of like worry, anxiety, these type of things, there used to be in the morning, I used to wake up and just immediately just feel so anxious and sort of have to do things to kind of regulate my nervous system. And that was kind of helping me cope. But what kind of caused things to shift in terms of like that not happening anymore was when the beliefs were updated. So if you take worry, for example, kind of having a more unconscious understanding that worry is well intended, but it's not actually doing anything to cause me to be safer.
Yeah.
In actual fact, a lot of the time it's getting in the way of that because I can't think clearly about the work I'm trying to do, or I can't. And so kind of updating that at that root level then causes a different nervous system response because it's not perceiving a threat in the same way. So that's kind of one angle that I would come at that answer, that question from.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think so. What I've noticed a lot, particularly in the entrepreneurial world, now I work with a lot of different people. So I work with people that have become new mothers, especially that have then started a business because they weren't able to return to their full-time job. And I think they've then come into business thinking, okay, well, business is only based on what my previous experiences are. So if they've worked in a 9 to 5 where it's been very demanding and they've been having to work really hard to get that salary at the end of the day, they then come into business with a mindset of, well, this is never going to be that because I can't commit that amount of time because I have a child to look after. And I think automatically they're letting those beliefs run the show that because they're not able to work 9 to 5, they can't be successful. And I think equally, there's the other way of looking at it where you have women or men as well that have come from a very sort of high achieving role, a very senior role in their corporate career that have decided actually they want to live more. They don't want to be spending their days giving themselves to somebody else because they're having to work so hard for that high paycheck at the end of the month. But then they still have that same kind of mindset that they need to do XYZ in order to be successful. And I think it's so interesting when you hear about people's journeys transitioning into entrepreneurship where they're carrying those beliefs from their entire career. What would be your kind of first thing? Because I know this is one thing that I definitely see with all these different types of people, in that because they're carrying those beliefs from their previous career, it kind of almost holds them back in achieving what it is that they really want. So whether it is more time freedom, whether it is more financial income, whether it is more stability or more flexibility in their life, it's almost reprogramming their mind, isn't it, to believe in that actually you can be successful or achieve the things that you want. You don't have to do it the way you've always done it in the past. Do you think that is something that they're aware of, or do you think that's more of a like an understanding, they need to understand more about the power of their mind? Or do you find that I feel like I've gone off on a tangent here, but
Yeah. No, no, I think it's such a good question.
for
Yeah.
me personally, it was very much a wake-up call in that, but I've tried that thing, I've done that course, I've invested in that thing, I've done all of the things, I know how to get to that next thing, but there is a block. There was literally something that was holding me back. It was like this resistance. And that was when I really started to understand it's a nervous system thing. It's literally my subconscious mind is running the show and causing my current reality. So for me, it was very much that wake up call. But then I appreciate for others, they might not realize it is that. And they do keep hustling and burning themselves out to kind of get to that next level in their business or their life. So what do you notice are the kind of patterns in making that transition from trying hard, because that's essentially what everyone is doing. They're trying to fix things, they're trying to do everything without working on their kind of mind and their nervous system and their subconscious. Like, yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to know your thoughts.
Yeah. There's so much that I could say about this, and so I'm going to try and condense it into something that I think will be kind of useful and illustrate kind of that through something I helped a client with kind of recently, a few months ago, no, a few months ago. And so one of the to answer the one of the questions, or the kind of main question in there was, do people know? I think is I think often they don't. Often it's outside of conscious awareness. It's in the blind spots. It's kind of, I'm trying all these strategies. I'm doing all of these things. I can't understand why it's kind of not happening for me. And what I often refer to as conflict can be kind of uncovered. And if there's some kind of conflict with either the process to getting to the point that they want to get to, or with having the outcome itself, if there is conflict, if there is something that is unaddressed that wouldn't be okay about it, then that would be a place where I'd be looking to start with someone. Firstly, okay, so that's the goal. Is there anything about the process to get there that wouldn't be okay? With you, if you think about that now, conceive of that. And then is there anything about having it that wouldn't be okay? And if so, I'm kind of listening to hear what that is. And if it's a legitimate thing, then it needs to be addressed. And if it's something that has clearly been getting in the way, that's great, because then that's information and then we can do something about it. But for example, a client who was really thinking, I according to kind of older beliefs, was like, yes, I'm making a lot of money working one-on-one, doing these kind of sessions, driving around, going to different people. And then when we looked at it and we saw in reality what she was able to make with the groups that she was also doing was significantly more, but there was an underlying belief that she was making good money from these kind of one-on-ones, that it wasn't a good idea to stop, as in it wasn't safe to stop doing that, and to put more of the effort and time to the groups which were also working, but which were far more leveraged, far more enjoyable for her, far less moving around. And once you kind of brought that into the light, once we got that in the light, and once I essentially then adjusted some of those dials as to, would it be okay, and sort of thinking about that, and kind of navigating the challenge that came with basically sort of letting go of some of like people who she had relationships with for a while, in the kind of quest for building things and growing things in a bigger way, in a different way, because there was also guilt, and even kind of shame around doing that, and wanting more and going for something bigger, and so that guilt, that shame, it's not always obvious, and it's not always easy to kind of reach where it's coming from, because sometimes it is coming from like early life lessons, experiences, situations, and that's where it needs addressing. So then things can change. But yeah, that's I think it's sometimes possible to kind of know it's a block, and I think quite often people do come to me when they're like, "Oh yeah, I know this is a subconscious block because it can't be anything else. I've tried
Yeah.
so many different strategies. I've invested in the courses. I've tried these things. What's going on?" Um, yeah.
I think like I could literally talk about this topic all day long because
Yeah.
it once you've done this work, and I remember the very first time I ever really looked into this, and I can't remember what it was. I don't know if it was like a belief coding session or timeline. I can't remember what it was. It was some kind of therapy session where it was taking you back into your past. And because I'd never experienced anything like that before, it was such an alien concept. I mean, it worked. I came away from there and I literally had sort of overcome a fear that I didn't even realize was there. But when you're actually in that zone of like, okay, I'm just going to try something because something's obviously not quite right, you do kind of have to be open to it, don't you? You have to be open to it trying something that you've maybe never ever experienced before, or you've never done this deep work, because it's all very well saying, okay, I do my affirmations and I do my journaling and I even do my visualizations and all of this stuff. But actually, if you're not looking at the root cause of why you have those beliefs and reprogramming what your beliefs are on a subconscious level, like you say, your subconscious level is running the show. It's literally like taking over and causing your current reality. So I think it's such powerful work, and it is one of those things that you really do need to experience and try it for yourself, because it is like I always talk about overnight success, how there isn't overnight success. But for me personally, when I've had various types of sessions in working on my subconscious mind and my nervous system, it has been more or less instant. Like I've literally felt that physical weight lifted. And it's so
Yeah.
fascinating, because otherwise you can just keep repeating the same cycles over and over again and not necessarily know why you're repeating those.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And when something shifts, when something gets moves out of the way, or when it can feel very quickly like some immediate relief. Um, what I'm always looking to do on a session is basically I say to myself, if I only had one session with this person in front of me to make an impact on them for the rest of their lives, how am I approaching this? How am I coming to this? And so I'm always looking to do the most with the least amount of time in case I
Yeah.
never see them again,
Yeah.
and yeah, and that even goes to working with long-term clients as well. Well, when we're kind of meeting up each time, it's kind of like, okay, if this was my one shot with this person, what am I bringing to this? And so yeah, sometimes that means calling things out that are a little bit uncomfortable to look at, but in general, what I'm doing with my work is actually things are very light, and it's not about kind of going in and unpacking things like you would with kind of therapy. It's not about
Yeah.
sort of um, revisiting troubling kind of memories. It's about um, updating the mind basically, and getting some of that energy that's been going to things that no longer exist, um, and harvesting it so it's available now to be
Yeah.
going into what has more power, what's more possibility, what's available to do now in
Yeah.
this moment, so that you can kind of create that future as well that you want.
It's basically like a system upgrade, isn't it? It's like you update your
Yeah.
phone with the latest software to make it work better and to be more functional. Like it's exactly the same with our brains, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, you know, so metaphor, story, analogies, the kind of language of the unconscious mind, I think are really are things that I bring in a lot to my work because they're so useful. If you think to some things that people have said to you in your life that have been really useful, often there'll be kind of a story attached to it, or a metaphor, or some kind of visual imagery. And so I think we, as technology kind of updates, we have more useful kind of like, or more maybe accurate metaphors. They're still metaphors, but yeah, I think software update is a good one because it's a complex thing, and our minds, are very complex and they are prone to glitching. And when you update those, that can have a significant effect to how things are operating and being experienced.
Yeah, I love that. How can our listeners find you? Like, what would be the next steps? If someone's listened to this today and thought, okay, I didn't even realize I needed to do this work until this episode, I need to have a chat with Ollie. How do you actually help people in your sessions?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. Um, so I have a 1 month intensive where we basically we do the sessions in there are designed to make a big impact with a small amount of time. So that would be like a system update. So it could be around one specific goal that you're working towards, and perhaps even though you know what to do and you're kind of clear, maybe you've outlined with a business coach, or you have the goals, you have the target, for whatever reason, it's just not happening. It's the thing that gets kind of like shoved over to tomorrow's to-do list again and again, and other busier work gets prioritized, even though that's the thing you really want to be doing. So it'd be clearing the kind of unconscious blocks, fears to that, and so that you can move forward. So that would be like the 1 month. That's a sort of snapshot of what we'd do, but it's kind of I'm listening and I'm hearing what's beneath what's being said, and then looking to cause that change at that kind of root level. And I have a freebie. It's like a private podcast that you can listen to if you have pressure around making a difficult decision. So if you've got a big decision that's coming up for your business, or it could be life as well, it's a really great way you can listen to that. I start by dealing with the physiological response that's going on, because often that's getting in the way of seeing things clearly. And then a really useful kind of mindset update to kind of think about the decision. And then I explained a bit more about what I mean by success without side effects. And so that's a really good place to start. And I also have a free Telegram channel where I share very kind of unedited, like basically voice notes, kind of like a sort of private, unofficial kind of podcast. And I share all sorts of kind of like updates in thinking and stuff that I support my clients with. So it's a way to have access to that.
I love that. There are so many ways to get in touch with you. I'll put all the details in the show notes below. Just to wrap up here, I would love to know if anyone's listening to this that's thinking, I don't know if I have any fears. I don't know if I've got any sort of like necessarily limiting beliefs. Could you give us some examples of some of the most common limiting beliefs or fears that people have, that whether they know they have when they first start working with you, or maybe they don't, but the ones that tend to come up the most? Is there anything that you would notice a pattern of?
Yeah, I think for high achievers in particular, it's that overworking. And so it's often because high achievers tend to have very high expectations, not mainly of themselves and their standards. They have high standards, understandably, of course. So it's kind of that overworking beyond what they would actually choose. And it's kind of almost like, I know I'm kind of working till midnight or working at times when I don't want to be working. And logically, I know it doesn't really make sense. But it's not necessarily something they're obviously aware of. Maybe it's just like, oh, I'm just a perfectionist, or I'm just a this. Um, and it's not really clear that there's another way to be that they would be happy with as well. So, for example, a client of mine was working kind of late, sort of midnight, and she was wanting to spend more time in the evening with her kids. And when we kind of looked at it together, we could see actually it was um, a lot of that extra work didn't need to be doing. It was like above and beyond that. Some of it would be necessary to kind of meet her high expectations for her work, but a lot of it was kind of almost going into like people pleasing or
Yeah,
fear of judgment being underneath that. What will they think if I don't do this? And when that's kind of not such a concern, when there's different kind of understanding of like, yeah, I'll be fine. This to me is more important. So that's where then she did end up, spending more time actually putting her kids to bed and
I love that. And you
yeah,
wouldn't
allowing
even
that to
like,
be
I'm just
okay.
imagining, because I know that that's definitely been me in the past, and I wouldn't have even necessarily thought around that as being some kind of fear or belief that was a negative thing, when actually, in reality, when you think about what it is that you do want and what your behaviors currently are, it's just then not in alignment, is it? So that's when obviously you can determine where those fears are. It's absolutely
Yeah.
fascinating. I could
Uh,
literally listen to you talk all day about this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I could talk about it all day. Yeah. But I just wanted to, I had a thought about what you just said because I think when it comes to high achievers and that sort of like, default being action being the default, it's for some people, it's kind of like, how can we get you into to action? For high achievers, it tends to be more like slowing down being the actual
Yeah,
issue. And, and another way I think it shows things can show up a lot for high achievers is like guilt on taking time off and resting, and it's like yeah, I'm taking time off, but I'm just feeling guilty the whole time, so I'm checking my phone in the middle of the movie, and understanding what's causing that, and sort of basically making it so those thoughts aren't responded to in the same way and in a way that feels natural and automatic. And it's like, oh yeah, I rested all day and I don't even remember feeling guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I'm looking to get someone to. Yeah.
I love that. I love
So it's
that.
more useful. It's more useful and it's more beneficial for them and for everyone they care about, their business and the world ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's been so good having you on the show today. Thank you so much for coming on, Ollie. If you've
Thank
enjoyed this
you.
episode, please do leave a review. Feel free to reach out to myself and Ollie as well. And there's also Ollie's freebie in the show notes below, so make sure you go and grab that. But thank you for coming on the show, Ollie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome.
Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.